Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me for this, our Champions League Matchweek 2 preview is BJ Cunningham and Anthony DeBundo from The Ringer sitting in with us here. And together, the three of us will go through the upcoming matches in the Champions League on Tuesday and Wednesday. We've highlighted a bunch that we want to get into, give out some bets. We'll do an Underdog Parlay, 3 legs, and then our best bets for match week 2. And right off the top, I do want to say it's kind of fun to not really know the stakes of a Champions League like match week, because after match week 1 in the old format, you kind of had some must-win games depending on the schedule, how it like shook out. And I know you'd have to do home and away, but we've got no idea how this thing's going to shake out, which is kind of fun. The picture is not clearer at all, and it's going to take some time for it to get clear. That said, pretty big one for Arsenal, BJ. I would say the stakes are maybe the highest for them of all the teams in match week 2, considering the opponent and what happened in their first match and just their wobbly form, injuries. Mikel Arteta is he on the hot seat, BJ? The Gunners minus 130. The Gunners are at home hosting PSG. PSG plus 360. The draw is plus 280. So a heavyweight clash at the Emirates. And I know you're going to be on Arsenal here. I disagree. Yeah. I think PSG is worth the bet, but you can go first.
Okay. Yeah, I think the price is really low on Arsenal, for being honest here. Because the way that this match sets up, how does PSG consistently break them down and create a bunch of chances? It really is only on the wings for them. And what Arsenal's going to do is they're going to double them up and they're going to force PSG to play through the middle. And the other aspect of this game that I think is very fascinating is, Arsenal has been playing terrorism ball and everybody hates them for it right now. But if we go back to even like last season and sometimes early on this season, they are one of the best high pressing teams in the entire world when they go man to man. And PSG doesn't get tested at all in Ligue 1. And if you go back through their Champions League results, the one team that comes close to Arsenal in terms of their physicality and being able to press high was Newcastle. And when PSG went to Newcastle, they got hammered 4-1. And Newcastle played extremely direct, and it won them the match. So PSG, now that they don't have Mbappe, I don't think they really have a striker they can put in the middle if Arsenal decides to go 5-4-1 or 4-4-2 and just like sit really deep and compact like they did against Tottenham or like they did, against Manchester City when they were down a man. So I don't really see an avenue for PSG to consistently create high quality chances. And the other aspect is PSG is going to build out of the back. They're not even going to try to play direct against Arsenal. So if Arsenal's able to turn them over high, that gives them some ability to create chances in those transition type opportunities. The other aspect is I'm not so sure PSG's midfield has enough ball stopping to stop Arsenal through the middle. I know Odegaard's not available. I would be shocked if the 16-year-old Ethan Nwaneri starts this game. He was brilliant against Leicester in the final 20-odd or so minutes when he came on. And Arsenal's always going to be amazing on set pieces, and PSG really doesn't have set piece offense that they saw last year through the Champions League or even in Ligue 1. And the final thing I'll leave you with, PSG, if you go through how they were away from Paris in the Champions League, they conceded close to 1.5 expected goals per 90 minutes, and they didn't really play that many elite offenses. So I know that Arsenal's offense isn't that good. I know they're set piece FC, but a lot of Arsenal's issues come from teams that just sit like super, super compact against them, and they don't have a way to play through it. PSG's not going to do that. They're going to allow space, and they're going to allow Arsenal to be able to play through them. So I have Arsenal at minus 181. So I think the price is low. And then also Arsenal's coming off creating 5 expected goals against Leicester. So Arsenal minus 120.
They're back.
For me. They're back. They're so back.
I think the question is, like, do you really think Arsenal is going to come in a home Champions League match and just like sit deep and absorb pressure?
If they go ahead, they will.
I mean, that would surprise me. I think it's interesting, like, who has the ball here and how does that make that match play out? Because I agree with a lot of what you said with, like, PSG defensively away from home, shaky. PSG defensively in the midfield, shaky. PSG striker situation, shaky. But Bradley Barcola is putting up some crazy early season numbers. It's like a tiny sample. He's 21, getting almost 1.1 XG plus XA per 90. Like, always been like an intriguing prospect, and now he's kind of just become Kylian Mbappe overnight. Now, I'm a little skeptical of that, but like, they have the attacking talent to ask questions of Arsenal. And I do wonder, you mentioned the format, Leboff, like, does this format kind of lend itself more to open games? Because there's fewer stakes. And that what we tend to see historically is that fewer stakes means more goals. There's not a ton on the line here. Like, Arsenal went to Atlanta and played truly terrorism ball. But at home here, if PSG wants to give it a go, PSG having banked 3 points, and Arsenal is willing to do it, I almost want to bet the over here, but the thought of laying minus 135 on an over 2.5 on an Arsenal match is nauseating to me, quite frankly.
Yeah. I do think the format does, especially in matches like this, right? Like, I have something I'll say for towards the end of the show about Bratislava and City, but I do think that the format will lead to more, or should in theory lead to more risk happy soccer in the beginning stages before anyone knows what they're dealing with in terms of the stakes and where the must-win situations are, and so until we get to the business end of the league phase, I'm not sure. But yeah, BJ, Arsenal's been just so wonky.
Mm-hmm.
They've been wonky, and it's been what, since the last international break, you would say?
Yeah.
Since Odegaard, I guess, got hurt, which makes sense, right? Like, you can kind of draw a direct line to the two things. And as down on Ligue 1 and PSG overall as we are, they've still been good. Like, and they've beaten a couple Champions League teams in there. So this is still a dangerous opponent. I think that it's not like definitely not my favorite underdog on the board, but I haven't been convinced with Arsenal, and they were really good against Leicester, and did not deserve to be put under any sort of pressure of losing losing points in that match. But that was Leicester City, and it was still 4-2. And then the draw against Atalanta, even the Tottenham game, I think could have went in a bunch of different directions as well. So I just haven't been as convinced by Arsenal of late. So I would lean towards PSG here.
I hope Arsenal gets bet out, because like if they do to +1, I'll hop on PSG for sure. Certainly lean that way.
Yeah.
Again, it's like Arsenal wants to do this no Odegaard thing again and sit really deep. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable laying spreads with them.
No.
They pushed this weekend, though, Anthony.
Yeah, they did.
They pushed the spread this week.
That's true. Yeah. That was true. I know a friend who had Leicester +2, and he was celebrating a little early, and then somehow it got to 4-2. But in the end, like, if you had the Arsenal spread, you probably deserved to cover there. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Not the way I expected Arsenal to cover or to push a spread there. You'd think everyone was just like, yeah, it's going to be 2-0 and pretty ho-hum. Not quite. That's a 3 p.m. Tuesday kickoff. Let's move on to another kickoff on Tuesday at that time, which is Bayer Leverkusen, the defending Bundesliga champs. They're -145 at home, hosting Milan, who are +370. Here, the draw is +320. Anthony, I would lean towards the underdog here based on just what we've seen out of Leverkusen. I think they've still been good. Just the big picture, looking back towards last year, what's the gap like between these two teams? Is it this wide? Do you think? I would say probably not. I think Milan could be a lot trickier, and I do think that there's something to be said just about a clash of styles. Generally, like, I know Milan plays a little bit more open, like the high event this year in Serie A, but different kind of nut to crack for Leverkusen compared to what they see week in and week out in Germany.
Yeah, I just don't really know what to think of Milan at this point. They had some good results in Serie A the last couple of weeks. but this defense looks very vulnerable to teams that can play in transition, and they're going on the road, and they just got whacked at home by Liverpool, and
Yeah.
not to compare Liverpool and Leverkusen, because Liverpool's still got better talent, but like Leverkusen is so good at happily playing in transition and dominating in transition. And if that's the big hole for Milan here going on the road, I just kind of see a lot of paths to potential. Like, this is a route, and we look back and we're like, why was Leverkusen only minus 140, 45 at home? Shouldn't they have been laying a goal? And I know it's crazy for me to come on this podcast and say, actually, I kind of like Leverkusen, but this number is almost cheap to me, based on just what I think of Milan more so than what I think of Leverkusen.
It's dropped too. It was minus 167, and then Leverkusen had a bad performance against Bayern.
Yeah,
and,
but again,
now
it's like, all right, they lost at Bayern, or they lost on the balance of chances to Bayern. You downgraded them for that, but I don't know. They clearly went to Bayern with a very clear plan, and because they got the early goal, they didn't really have to change their plan because they were never losing. So I kind of thought that they just sat in and said, all right, go ahead, good luck, Bayern. And Bayern created more chances, should have won the game, but it wasn't like it was overwhelming from Bayern. So I don't know. I kind of think Leverkusen went there to do a job, did the job, and now they come home and they're a little cheaper because of it.
Yeah.
I also just don't trust the German teams against the Italian teams. We'll talk about that later. Just the defensive solidity of these Italian teams.
That's what I'm saying.
It seems to always play well. That's the scary part for me.
Yeah. That's I once again at the price. My favorite bet in this match would be like Milan on the money line. Able just to like snuff out the game and win 1-0 or something and make it into a true rock fight. BJ, anything here?
No, I'm going to pass, which is kind of surprising. The number drops to minus 135. I think I might be somewhat in range for me. Milan they're interesting to say the least, because now there's talk that Fonseca's job is on the line, that they're already floating new candidates out there after just this kind of a little bit of a slow start.
I think the Milan derby bought him
bought him some time.
He'll be all right, I think, after that. But once they got smoked by Liverpool, like it started before Liverpool, then they got routed by Liverpool, and it was like, oh man, this is ugly. But the personnel is not. The defensive personnel stinks.
Yep,
That's the problem.
Yeah, it's bad, and it's just even if you watch the match against Liverpool, they got one transition attack off of a corner, and that was just kind of it. So this is tough. I mean, the way there's two avenues to play Leverkusen. It's just like sit in really compact and just let them circulate the ball around, or it's do what Atalanta did. But AC Milan's not cut out to do that. So this is a pass for me. Interesting to watch this number though and see how it kind of drops.
That brings us to Dortmund and Celtic. This one is in Germany. Dortmund's minus 215. Celtic is 5-1. The draw is 4-1. Celtic hasn't given up a goal yet in the Scottish Premier League, so that's fun. Dortmund, meanwhile, after making it to the Champions League final last year, been a kind of stop-start, I would say, this year. They've won 3 of 5, but the one loss was glaring, to say the least. Yeah. And they've just had weird results all over the place. They shipped 2 to Heidenheim in a 4-2 win. They shipped 2 to Bochum in a 4-2 win.
Should have been more too.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's this is a weird team, and I don't think all that different in a weird way from what they were last year, which would be like, oh well, they made the Champions League final last year, but we kind of know how they got there. So I don't know, BJ, can we make a case here for the underdog?
Oh yeah, we definitely can.
You always have a shot against Dortmund.
You always have a shot. I mean,
they're always going to give you a shot or 10.
Someone said it on Twitter, and I think it's very true. But Nuri Sahin's Dortmund is like one of the worst coach teams in Europe right now. They are so bad defensively, and really what it comes down to is the fact that they're building out in this 2-2-1 or a bunch of different type of formations. And they're playing a high line, and they're just leaving themselves completely vulnerable to any type of transition attack. And so now you get into a situation where Celtic, who's been in the Champions League many times, I know they didn't do really anything offensively last year, But if you go through the teams that they played, it was Feyenoord, Lazio, and Atletico Madrid. All those teams are way better in terms of defending in transition than Dortmund is. So I've been thinking of a number of different ways to play this match. I think my favorite bet overall for it is just both teams to score at -145, which I don't think anything involving Dortmund. I mean, we just had Dortmund and Bochum's both teams to score with -150. And now we're getting a cheaper price on Celtic. So, I mean, Celtic has some really good attackers that can hit Dortmund in transition here. So, yeah, it's bad with Dortmund right now. And I think, even if you watch them against Bruges in their first Champions League match, I mean, they were incredibly lucky not to concede a goal. I know Bruges only created 1.2 expected goals, but they had so many threatening attacks right inside Dortmund's box. So both teams to score at -145. I mean, I think I project this more north of -200, which is just kind of the state that we are here with Dortmund. I mean, their defensive numbers, it's funny. They're conceding the exact same expected goals per 90 minutes this year as they did last year in the Bundesliga. And now we're looking at them like, oh my gosh, they suck. Whereas last year, it was like, oh, maybe Dortmund's not that bad defensively. So I think it's also an aspect that Dortmund just doesn't have the center backs. If you're going to play a high line and build out with only 2 center backs to cover that much ground. So I like both teams to score at -145. I'll be on Celtic's money line as well. What scares me about Celtic taking them +1 is that Dortmund's offense is actually pretty dang good. Like if they have a lot of pieces there. And you saw that, once you go ahead against them, like Girassi and Brandt and all of their great attackers can do a pretty effective job at breaking down teams that want to play compact. And Celtic is not the type of team that's just that is good sitting in that low compact defensive block, because they never get tested in the Scottish Premier League and they're always pressing high under Brendan Rodgers. So both teams score -145 for me in this one.
The best way to describe Dortmund right now is we talked all of last year about Brighton's defensive transition being bad and how they had all these issues in midfield because nobody was really good at ball winning. And now, they may have somebody with Baleba, but Pascal Gross was the guy that they relied on for their midfield. And then they sold him to Dortmund, and Dortmund are playing him now. And him and Emre Can's got to be 35 now. Like, That's the midfield that they started over the weekend against Bochum. So there's no way that works. I mean, I agree entirely. This screams like Celtic 1.6 XG. They miss a bunch of chances. Kobel makes a bunch of saves. Yeah. That's the only thing that scares me here. But I mean, of course, from a numbers perspective, it makes no sense that this number is this low. Crazy that the Pascal Gross was their big midfield addition this summer.
And Emre Can, by the way, is only 30.
You're kidding.
This is crazy, yeah.
I would have guessed like 35. Feels like he's been...
Yeah,
he left Liverpool at like 26.
He's 30 years old, but he also played for Germany at the 2006 World Cup too. So it's both of those things have to be true, because I could swear I saw him playing with Michael Ballack at that World Cup. Okay, another German team at home. That's Leipzig hosting Juve. +130 on Leipzig. Juve +210. The draw is +245. Another clean sheet for Juve and domestically over the weekend.
You can kill the man, but you can't kill the idea, Michael.
What if they just don't concede a goal all season?
I was gonna say, like, who gives up a goal first between them and Celtic? It's fun because Celtic's in obviously much softer environment compared to Juventus, but Juventus is a better team, and it's so cool. This is my kind of team, man. Just go out there with the sole purpose of not trying to give up a goal. That's what soccer's all about. And I like them here at +210. Another chance for an Italian side to bring, early aughts Serie A to a Bundesliga venue and muddy up the pitch a bit. So I don't know. I think that they've got a great chance of pitching another shutout here, and that gives them a chance to win at +210. So I like Juve, Anthony.
Yeah, no idea if Juve even tries to win this game if they don't just play for the draw, but I'll be damned if I don't bet them as a dog here. Sizable road dog. You mentioned the defensive metrics. I don't need to repeat that because we all know what the situation is there, but I did think it was interesting against PSV in the last match. Like, PSV very much uses its fullbacks aggressively, and Juventus was able to take advantage of those opportunities on the flanks in transition, running the channels. Leipzig also likes to use their fullbacks aggressively. I think that will create opportunities for similar things. I mean, if you were to say PSV and Leipzig, their presses are not all that different. They play a very direct, quick forward passing vertical style. And Juve had a ton of success kind of just waiting for the mistakes and then countering and creating big chances off them. So I think this is a decent stylistic matchup for Juve. And like you said, they haven't conceded a goal. It's not they've played a bunch of bums. They played Roma, they played Napoli, didn't concede either of those matches. So I really like what I'm seeing from Juve, and I'm going to keep buying them until the market adjusts.
I agree. I'm going to play something a little different here. I'm going to go Leipzig under 1.5 team total, which you can get at -150 right now. You mentioned that they haven't conceded a goal in Serie A. It's not like people are just creating a bunch of chances and they're getting lucky and fortunate. Not a single team has created over half an expected goal against them. And like you mentioned, Anthony, like how Leipzig creates most of their chances and how they're good is when they can play vertical and play in transition. But Juve is just not going to allow them to do that. And outside of the good performance against Augsburg over the weekend, Leipzig hasn't been that good offensively. I mean, they haven't created over 1.5 expected goals in any of their other matches. So, I'm projecting Leipzig right around 1 goal. So if they score 2 goals here, tip my cap and we'll move on.
2.2 XG allowed in 6 matches in Serie A.
I don't know. I don't see how Leipzig is getting to 2 unless we have a penalty, some goals from outside the box.
And that's exactly what we said about City and Arsenal when they played, and
it happened.
We were totally.
That's
right
why we do this, right? It happens.
A set piece. I mean, they stopped enforcing the rules on set pieces, so.
Which there, I mean, it's.
And they decided to start enforcing this bizarre yellow card rule, which
yeah,
sure.
So, which Arsenal has been on the wrong end of twice.
All right, let's do a 20-minute recap of of the Premier League's rules.
It's true. It's true.
Juve's 25-1 to win the Champions League still, and I know it's come down a little bit, but they're just quite interesting.
Aren't they the new Atleti? Leave off. Are they going to become?
I mean, we can do. Maybe we just do a dual forecast here, just Atleti versus Juve in the final, and then we bet the over 5.5 red cards. It'll probably be played behind closed doors, just because the environment would just be too crazy. Mm-hmm. Liverpool up next. They are -500. They've bounced back quite well from the loss to Nuno's Tricky Trees a couple weeks back. Took care of business against Milan, Bournemouth, Wolves, and now they're -500 at home to Bologna, who are 11-1. Draws +650 here. The one thing I'll say is this number is longer than the number was on, or it's right around where Forest was. Like, that's the one thing that kind of jumps off the page to me. I'm not going to say that one way or another in this match, though. I do think that you can look at the 0-0 a little bit at 18-1, because I think what we'll see from teams, especially as underdogs against Liverpool in the Champions League, is they'll just come to shut down shop, and I don't think that Arne Slot's Liverpool is going to be as, it just won't be as potent as Jurgen Klopp's at being able to handle that situation. We saw it against Forest. So I'm betting that Bologna shows up to do that. Whether they're able to get on the board, who knows? But so I think 18-1 on the 0-0 is actually quite interesting. We had a couple of these hit in the last match week of the Champions League and with Arsenal and City. So why not give it another shot here? At a big number, BJ. So I'm just going to look at this thing to be really, really ugly, and Bologna to come here with 1 goal in mind, and that's not to let up any goals.
I agree. There's 2 different bets I kind of like. I'm kind of wavering between the 2. Liverpool to win 0 is -110 right now, and under 3 at +110 would be the 2 ways that I would look at this. Vincenzo Italiano, I don't like him. In fact, I hate him.
Boo. Did we do this last podcast?
He sucks, man. He can put up all these great possession and field tilt and build up numbers all he wants. They can't create crap. And that goes back to last year at Fiorentina as well, where they had the lowest XG per shot in Serie A. They, on the weekend, I know they got a red card in like the 60th minute, but 0.1 against Atalanta, who's just been shipping goals left and right to everybody. That's terrible. I mean, they had a good performance in there, and it's clear they just missed Xerxes a lot. They just don't have a striker really that can make up for his type of production. But they created over 3 expected goals against Udinese in their first match, and they haven't created over 1 expected goal in any other match. Like it's been bad, and I just don't see with how improved this Liverpool defense has been. Good defensive performance against Wolves over the weekend, held them to 0.6 expected goals. I just don't really see how they're really going to threaten Liverpool's goal. And you're right, Michael. They probably are going to come with it being an away match to kind of set up shop and really just try and play that compact defensive structure that they played under Mata last year. But if you watch them against Shakhtar, I mean, it was a struggle to get to 1 expected goal for them. So Liverpool is a much better defensive team. So I projected 2.6 goals, so under 3, anything plus money is good enough for me. But I'll be looking at Liverpool to win 0 as well. I may end up playing that. But right now, I'll go under 3 at plus 110.
Yeah. Liverpool and under 3.5 is intriguing to me. It would be surprising if Liverpool ran up the score here just because of how they've played under Slot. Like they are not pushing for those extra goals. I know it is a little bit more incentivized with this current setup, but even still, Liverpool under 3.5 is probably where I'll look here. Shutout win. It does enable you a little bit more leeway if this gets to like Bologna sneaks a goal, Liverpool wins 2-1 type deal is still more on the table. So I agree with DJ. Like watching Bologna against Shakhtar was nauseating. They got to 1 XG because of a deflected ball that fell to the guy right in front of the goalie, and he still didn't score. That was like half of the XG. It was a lot of just, oh, the winger has it, Dan Ndoye has it, and then he sends it across to no one, and it gets cleared. So they're definitely lacking incisiveness. I'm just, Italiano, his system works if you have a talent attacker or two. They just don't really have that right now. So agree on this one.
That brings us to Benfica and Atleti. This one in Portugal. Benfica plus 205 at home. Atleti plus 145 on the road. The draw is plus 225. Wild scenes at the Wanda Metropolitano today in a 1-1 draw against Real Madrid. Batteries or a lighter thrown at Thibaut Courtois.
There's a bag of poop, too.
Bag of poop.
Proper Madrid derby.
That's poor
Football's
behavior.
back.
Poor behavior, if I do say so myself. Poor form, but funny.
Because
nobody got hurt. And look, from a New York Islander fan, we're no strangers to throwing debris, detritus on the ice. So
Philly would never do that.
No, you guys are good.
Classy fan base.
Behave well. I got nothing here. I mean, Benfica beat me last week, or last 2 weeks ago, I should say. Don't know what it's going to be like for Diego Simeone's men following that derby, but BJ, you do think that the underdog has some legs, huh?
Yeah, my numbers are telling me to play Benfica. Not the biggest fan of Bruno Lage, if we're being honest, and I didn't think they were that good against Red Star in their opening match. The Arts Koglu got one on the back post. That was basically their entire XG. But
nice goal from the free kick.
Yep, exactly. I love Arts Koglu, by the way. He's awesome. A good signing for Benfica. But horrible spot for Atletico. Maybe you can answer this question for me, Anthony, but like, why is La Liga just shoehorning midweek matches in week after week after week? Like, what are they trying to make Copa del Rey like, a singular weekend event? I don't understand it, because this is going to be Atletico's fifth or sixth match in 14 days. Like, this is it's a horrible spot for them. And Benfica hasn't played anybody in Portugal. Their numbers are great. They did lose some guys this year, but they retooled. Like I said, Arteta Koglu. They've got a striker from Alkmaar who put up almost 30 goals last season in the Eredivisie. So I think this is a better spot for Benfica. They have the rest advantage. Of course, Atletico had to play late Sunday and then transition all the way to play on Wednesday. So tough spot for Atletico. So I like Benfica as a short dog here. Probably play them draw no bet. Plus anything plus 110 or better. Just kind of a numbers play for me. Not really keen on Benfica, but just really, really bad spot for Atletico.
Yeah, I think the total's low. Over 2.5 minus 110. Was not impressed at all with Benfica's defense. I know they only give up 1 XG in the match against Zagreb, but Zagreb had a ton, or excuse me, Belgrade, but they had a ton of chances, and they were consistently putting on pressure. Like Belgrade had them penned in the second half for most of the half. It was kind of alarming how little control Benfica was able to have on the game. And Diego Simeone talking about the system and the format and how it changes things. And he said that you have to go play to win. And I think it's legitimate. I mean, if you watch Atleti, they were much more open. Granted, they went down a goal early, so that kind of impacted things. But Atleti was not like going to grind their way to results and play the traditional Atleti way. It was not any of that in the first match, and I don't really think they're going to continue to do that. Like you said, there's such little stakes. They get the win the first match. Now they go on the road. Benfica will be open. They'll have chances on the break to hit Benfica. And I think this total is just a touch low, 2.5.
Aston Villa and Bayern up next. This one takes place at Villa Park, where they are plus 330 underdogs. Bayern Munich traveling at minus 135. The draw is plus 320. Bayern currently sits atop the Champions League phase table after match week 1, thanks to a 9-2 victory in their opener. So I don't think there's too much to kind of glean from that. This match feels like it could be pretty chaotic, maybe 4-3, like a 4-3 kind of situation, but
what do we do with Bayern? That's the question.
Yeah, like it's
because they've looked super, super, super good defensively in the Bundesliga.
I think it's a great matchup for them, and I'm going to bet them.
I hate the fact that I bet Villa this Sunday. They didn't show up, and now I'm going to fade them, and I kind of like them next weekend. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to bet them on the weekend. They didn't win. Then I'll probably fade them during the week. They'll probably get a result, and then I'll bet them against United on whatever that is.
Yeah.
And United will make their biannual appearance at the Premier League.
Here's the thing. I'm not so sure that Unai Emery's system is actually set up to even like hold Bayern in check, right? Because I mean, they've played basically nobody this season. They lost to Arsenal in the second match of that, but they've been playing basically nobody. And
no dynamic attacking teams on their schedule.
Exactly. And now you get maybe the most dynamic attacking team in the entire world.
The one dynamic attacking team they played, they should have beat them in Everton.
Yeah. But so the thing with Company, and I was doing a deep dive into Bayern because I wrote up the preview for Leverkusen and Bayern, and Company.
Easy under.
Yeah, I know. I said on the pod, I was like, I have a pick that everybody's going to hate, so go read it. But Company he's really, really aggressive in possession, and he's doing a lot of different build-up structures. Like at times it's even like a 2-1-7. Like he's doing everything just to overwhelm and overload the opponent. And with the ability of all the attackers that they have with Kane and Musiala, the way they're able to interchange and drop deep. I'm sorry, but if you're Aston Villa and you're going to play a high line against the attackers that Bayern has right now, that's not going to work. I know Unai Emery beat Bayern 2 years ago, but I have a hard time seeing how they're actually going to be able to defend all of the attackers and how overwhelming Bayern's going to be. And the flip side of it is Bayern is just, their defensive numbers are so good because they're so freaking aggressive with their counterpressing and they've been so effective with it. So when they're trying to build through the middle and they're trying to do all these overloads and everything, I mean, you have to be able to, once you win the ball, play a quick ball over the top and try and get Bayern into like a 2v2 or a 1v1 situation, and nobody's really been able to hurt them that way. I mean, the last 2 matches against Werder Bremen and Leverkusen, 3 total shots and 0.1 XG, and it's all counterpressing. That's really all it is. And Aston Villa has, at times this season, again, they haven't been tested. They haven't faced really a team that's going to press them the way that Bayern's going to. If you even go back to last season, whenever they played good teams, they just shipped goals because they kept turning the ball over in their own final third when they tried to build out of the back. And they're just not a team that's set up to play extremely direct. So I think it's a horrible matchup for them. And I like Bayern quite a bit here. They're minus 135 right now. I'd play that up to minus 145. I think, or if you want to play some alts, I think Bayern's going to hammer them.
Okay. that brings us to the last match that we'll kind of really sink our teeth into before going some rapid fire and then underdog parlay time and best bets. Lille 5-1 underdogs against Real Madrid -185 for Carlo Ancelotti's men, and like we said, they're coming off of that pretty emotional derby, so interesting spot for them. The draw is +340. Not too much for me here. Spot is a little weird. I did think that Real Madrid was maybe a little the scoreline flattered them a little bit match week 1. The 3-1 win, but not too much here. Anthony, what do you got?
Yeah, not much here. I think I really would have loved to have bet last year's Lille +1 at the spot at home, but this year's Lille is a lot less interesting to me.
Yeah, it's the lines come down a little bit. It was -200. Then after the draw in the derby, obviously Mbappe is going to be out. Courtois got injured as well, so Lunen's going to be in net, which is I don't think that big
an upgrade.
Yeah, that's almost an upgrade. Yeah,
upgrade. Whoever if they go from Lunin to Courtois, upgrade. If they go back to Lunin, upgrade.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And I mean, Real Madrid is again same boat as Atletico. They've been playing a ton of matches as well. They've been doing a little bit of rotate. Like they rotate their midfield pretty much every single match. But Bellingham plays every game. Their back line is basically playing all. So again. I mean, if you're gonna give if I could get Lille at +1.5 in this spot, like that interests me. But we're sitting at +1.
Yeah.
Now, so
it's interesting. So one thing I do like to watch, take note of how much the Champions League markets move in the final day leading up to matches, and kind of see patterns and see where, hey, like somebody who has a lot of market influence really hates Lille, or they really like Sporting, because no game moved more than that one last time out. Sporting ran out to like -130, 35, 40, out to like -200. They got bet very aggressively, and so if you see Real Madrid take money here, I'm not afraid to play against Steam, but I just think it's interesting. You should know if you're betting this stuff seriously, like where is the market moving, because it will tell you some things. And Sporting is interesting to me. They took a lot of money. They looked really good their first game, and now I have them correctly priced, but I'm interested to see if I'm just a little slow to how good this team is.
Okay. Rapid fire real quick. If you got anything else, BJ, that you want to touch on.
Yeah, Stuttgart.
To the underdogs.
Yeah, Stuttgart, Sparta Prague over 3.5 +120 to kick things off. Stuttgart's defense is terrible. They lost both their center backs. They're just shipping goals left and right. Sparta Prague. Yep, that's right. Sparta Prague put up 2.5 expected goals against Salzburg. Salzburg under Pep Linders, which is Klopp's disciple, played very aggressive in terms of their pressing and trying, and they got roasted. So the same thing can happen here to Stuttgart. Girona and Feyenoord, interesting match, over 3 +110. This is really a game where if a goal goes in, it's really just going to go off the rails, because Girona, their offensive numbers actually have still been pretty good in La Liga, averaging 1.5 expected goals. And if they go behind, they're going to get uber aggressive with their pressing, trying to overload when they're in possession. Whereas, if Girona scores first, I mean, Feyenoord's going to have to come out and press them, and their press hasn't been very good so far. If you watch the match against Leverkusen, I know Leverkusen only created 1.7, but they were really, really bad defensively. So I like the over there, and I like one more, but I'm going to save it for the underdog section.
Anthony, anything else?
I already looked at the doc, so I know who BJ's underdog is, and it saddens me to my core. Not much else for me here. I really don't love the board this week. I know you're going to talk about Bratislava in a second, so I'll just push the floor to you. Like, this board was one of the more, I looked like throughout the whole thing, and I was just like, this is a pretty weak slate. Like, we have one super high profile match, and then it's like around the from a betting perspective, and the sample is so small that I still want to kind of get more information on these teams before I just light up the board with bets.
Or you could bet Bratislava to score first or to win the first half against Man City. it's the City thing, giving up goals in the beginning of games and just like not turning on is that we've seen through a few matches this season. Just gonna try to play it again at a big number, and they're going to a weird environment.
+3, right?
Yeah, and look, like
I'm not doing it. I know
there is a
CJ
-3.5 -150 out there for Bratislava.
So this is the other thing though, is like
I don't know if Haaland plays.
They don't have another striker.
But that's the other problem. Yeah, they don't need a striker to beat Bratislava though.
They don't.
I don't know, man. They got former Tottenham Hotspur.
That's the thing. I talked about this, like Kane Golden Boot. I just don't know how Pep seriously plays Haaland here. I mean, they had to be responsible at some point. If you could figure out whether Haaland's playing or not, and Haaland's out, I love +3.
And we have a smash spot on Fulham this weekend too against City.
I think I like the under more.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm betting Bratislava to score first, and I'll probably like split a small stake on first half money line. Happens. Who was it? Was it last year or 2 years ago where City fell behiund?
That was against Red Star.
That was last year.
I had a 50 to 1. I think I had a 45 or 50 to 1 ticket.
They were up 1-0 at half. They were still 45 to 1.
Yeah, exactly. There is a 47 to 1 on Bratislava out there, but man, they're bad.
Yeah. Yeah, they're bad. But they do have old.
I have a
they have
friend
old.
who's like somewhat interested or semi-curious about getting into soccer. I don't think he's actually that serious about it, but like we were mentioning teams to maybe get involved with, and
you said Bratislava?
No, we said Bayern. It was 2 days before the 9-2, and he was like 9-2. Like I thought soccer was low scoring. Yeah. They broke the Champions League record in his first match, so obviously fascinating.
But and he'll definitely be in after Bratislava goes up 1-0 to City at home. The games that in Slovakia, City's just they've run through a little bit of a gauntlet. I just think it's a weird sleepy spot. We could catch them with their heads down a bit after the Newcastle draw. I mean, it was Arsenal, Newcastle, Champions League. Before
League
that,
Cup.
it's been a
what is
Cup. Yeah,
what are they to score? Just score period.
To score period. Well, like I said, they're 6 to 1. They're 6 to 1 to score first. They are 14 to 1 to win the first half, and
they're plus 150 to score. This is Norwich territory here.
Norwich. They're at home?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're at home.
Man, that's kind of tempting.
And they do have, like I keep trying to say, they have a
also the Rodri thing. Like they look bad defensively on Saturday.
Right, man. This is it. This is the opportunity.
Liverpool's going to win the title.
Crazy. You know who the favorite to win the title now?
Yeah, Arsenal. Lieboff, are you going to root for Liverpool to win the title just to stick at the Klopp?
No.
Okay, just making sure. That seems like a kind of thing you would do.
No, absolutely not.
The hate runs.
It's not
way
he's not bigger than the club. He's not bigger than the club. Old Tottenham hand and Stoke City legend Kevin Wimmer for Bratislava is 30 to 1 to score, and he scored for them last game. So hey, why not? And on that note, let's talk underdogs. BJ, we teased it, so you can go first.
Shakhtar Donetsk plus 425 at a neutral site against Atalanta. Atalanta, outside of their game against Bologna, who we already talked about this weekend, has been just shipping goals left and right in Serie A. And people are just starting to figure out the man-to-man press. They're just playing direct. They're playing over top of it, and they just have not been able to defend it at all. And the Atalanta offense has really taken a dip since Koop Miners went to Juventus, since Scamacca got injured. You know, Lookman is an incredible attacking player, but when he has those two guys available, that's what allows him to actually go 1v1 against a lot of these teams. So teams are just keying up on him. Shakhtar, I mean, they weren't that great against Bologna offensively. They got a penalty, but otherwise they didn't do anything. They have some talented guys. Sudakov will go for a lot of money probably at the end of this season. But last season in the Champions League, they were pretty good at these neutral site games. If you remember, they beat Barcelona, they beat Antwerp, they lost to Porto in their opening one. But the way Atalanta's been defending, going away from home, like I think this is a good spot here for Shakhtar. So I like them at plus 425.
I was kind of wavering between a few teams. I'm going to land on Celtic here at 5-1 against Dortmund. Just try to beat this sieve of a defense with a Celtic team that got off the blocks well against Bratislava, which isn't easy to do. 5-1 win in match week 1. And they haven't let up a goal yet in the Scottish Premier League. They're not going to be able to hold Dortmund out, but I do think that if this thing does run back and forth, there is a better than 5-1 chance that Celtic can get the job done. Anthony, what do you have?
Yeah, we talked about him. BJ likes the over. I mean, Stuttgart, their defensive metrics are shocking in the Bundesliga. They looked poor against. They came out and blitzed Real Madrid in the first 30 minutes. It was eerily similar to the Champions League final, where like Stuttgart came out, or Dortmund in the case of that one, came out, like pressed them, like kind of overwhelmed them. And then as the match continued, it got really ugly defensively for Dortmund. And in this case, Stuttgart, they've given up 8 expected goals in 5 matches in Germany. And it's not like they've necessarily played a murderer's row. Wolfsburg, Dortmund, Gladbach, Mainz, 2.3 to Mainz. They blew multiple leads to Mainz, Freiburg away. Like, they've been horrible. And Prague came through qualifying and like looked really impressive. And we mentioned them last year. Like, we're a pretty competitive team in that Europa League last year. You know, taking out Galatasaray, went toe to toe with them in Gala until the red card kind of sunk them. Like, they're a very capable team. So I don't think the gap is this big. And I like Prague at plus 550.
All right, we got ourselves a doozy here at 204-1. That's Sparta Prague, Shakhtar, and Celtic. So
that's a fun
204-1.
Not bad. Like I go back and forth between fading and betting Stuttgart like every other week, so it's been kind of fun. Time to fade them. Next week I'll probably bet them.
Okay. Best bets for match week 2 of the Champions League. Anthony, you can get us started here.
All right, I'm going to go with Juventus draw no bet. You could take them plus a quarter. You could take them on the money line, but I'm going to go draw no bet here against Leipzig. I just think this defense is extremely elite in possession, and the way that Leipzig likes to press teams out of possession, they like to get their wingbacks and their fullbacks very involved and very aggressive, and it's not all that different from what PSV did in the first match. I understand PSV is not as talented as Leipzig, but the similar kind of flaws in defensive transition exist on the wings. I think that's where Juventus took advantage of PSV and can do the same in this matchup. Really think Juve is the most underrated team in this field right now amongst the top half. So give me Juve and the Thiago Motta and the boys to grind out a result here away from home.
All right, we're aligned on that one. My favorite bet is Juve at plus 210. I just don't think they're going to give anything up here, BJ. And I do think this is, if you want to bet Juventus to win the Champions League 25-1, you're still got a chance before they wreck Leipzig and that number comes down even further. So Juve, what do you got, BJ? The old lady. Should we just go all 3 of us on Juve here?
Sure, why not? You want me to do? I'll do my best bet. Leipzig team total under 1.5. Right? We'll get all angles here on Juve. Yeah, I don't see how is Leipzig getting the 2 goals here. I mean, Juve, and they haven't conceded a goal obviously in Serie A, but no Serie A team has created over half an expected goal against them. The only goal they conceded was in stoppage time when they were already up 3-0 against PSV. So. And that's kind of just core principles of Thiago Motta. It's a very compact structure, very passive. They're not going to press. And like Anthony said, really how Leipzig creates a lot of their chances and how they're good is when they can get Openda and Šeško in transition. They're not a team that really consistently breaks down low blocks. So, and their offensive numbers actually haven't been that good in the Bundesliga this season. So there you go. Everybody, all line, 3 different bets on Juve against Leipzig.
Yeah, up the old lady, man. Go Juve. I feel like as a trio, we were very anti-Juve and never really got a chance to get around this bunch. But they're our mob now, so Juventus.
2.5 years of going against Juve, and I've decided to buy in. It's a fun the circle of life.
This is the way to get us in, right? Just shut it down, baby.
Which is, you know what?
They're not. Their defense is not a whole lot different than So
there's a lot more possession. They do have a lot more of the ball than they used to. But
that's a Wednesday
the best
kickoff.
defense in Europe.
Yeah.
All right. So there we go. Our reputation's on the line on Wednesday afternoon as Juve take on.
You can pen in a
Leipzig.
3-0 win for Leipzig.
Leipzig will score in the 8th minute. Yeah.
You don't need a pencil.
Benjamin Šeško header,
Yeah.
21st minute, 1-0.
21st
And then
second.
Juve. Yeah. The Brentford. They're going to do the Brentford tactics.
Yeah.
All right. That does it for this preview for match week 2 of the Champions League. BJ and I will be back with Sam on Thursday morning to look at the Premier League. Then we will all take a break and a breather for the next international break, and then back for more Champions League and Premier League after that. Until then, best of luck with all your bets. Hopefully Juventus takes care of us all here. Don't forget to bet that 204-1 parlay as well. Feel really good about that one. For BJ, for Anthony, I'm Michael. We'll see you next time.